Have you ever noticed that some of the most powerful rules in our lives are unwritten down anywhere? They're not in any law book, and no one ever sits you down to teach them. Yet, we all follow them. These are the invisible laws of society, the unspoken agreements that dictate how we act, what we think is normal, and even what we're afraid of. Think about it. Why do we automatically lower our voices in a library? Why do we feel awkward standing too close to a stranger in an elevator? There's no police officer there to enforce these things, but we do them anyway. These rules tell us what's acceptable, what's embarrassing, and what we should never. Eber Castillon, unlike the laws made by governments, these unwritten codes come from society itself. We start learning them the moment we're born. It's in the way our parents react when we do something wrong, the stories we're told, and the expectations placed on us at school and at work. We are guided into specific roles and behaviors without ever signing a contract. We just absorb them. So, what happens if you break one of these invisible laws? The punishment isn't a fine or jail time. It's something far more subtle, and in many ways, more powerful. It's judgment. It's the silent treatment from friends or family. It's the feeling of being an outcast, of being isolated. That's what makes these rules so incredibly effective. The fear of social rejection is a deep-seated human instinct. Societies have always relied on these unwritten rules to keep things running smoothly. They create a sense of order and predictability. But there's a catch. Over time, these rules can become so ingrained that they start to shape our thoughts. We stop asking why we do certain things. We just do them because everyone else does. And stepping out of line feels risky, uncomfortably, or just plain weird. This is how invisible laws can become even stronger than written ones. A written law can be challenged in court. But how do you challenge a rule that lives inside everyone's head? These internal scripts are passed down from one generation to the next, often without anyone realizing it. They become just the way things are. Let's look at a few examples. In some cultures, making direct eye contact is a sign of respect, while in others, it's seen as aggressive or rude. There's no objective right or wrong. It's just the invisible law of that particular society. Or consider fashion. What's considered professional attire in an office isn't a legal requirement, but showing up in beachwear would get you some serious side-eye, and probably a chat with HR. These norms guide our choices every single day. The fascinating thing is how these rules form in the first place. Often, they start as a practical solution to a common problem. For example, the rule of queuing, or standing in line, likely started as a fair way to manage scarce resources. But over time, it became a powerful social norm about fairness and patience. Breaking the queue isn't just inefficient, it's seen as a moral failing. You're not just cutting in line, you're being selfish. These invisible laws also create our sense of identity and belonging. Following the rules of our group, whether it's our family, our friends, or our entire nation, makes us feel like we're part of something bigger. It's a comforting feeling, but it can also limit us. It can stop us from exploring new ideas, questioning old traditions, or expressing our true selves if they don't fit the mold. So, are these unwritten rules good or bad? The answer is, it's complicated. They provide stability and social cohesion, which are essential for any society to function. But they can also stifle creativity, enforce outdated prejudices, and prevent positive change. Think about historical movements for civil rights or women's suffrage. Those were all about challenging the powerful, unwritten laws of their time, the ones that said certain people were less valuable than others. The first step to true freedom is recognizing the invisible cages we live in. By becoming aware of these unwritten rules, we can start to question them. We can ask, does this rule still make sense? Does it serve a good purpose? Or is it just an old habit we've forgotten how to break? When we start to see these invisible laws for what they are, social constructs, not absolute truths, we gain the power to choose. We can decide which rules to follow, which to bend, and which to break entirely. This is how societies evolve. It's how we move forward. So next time you find yourself doing something automatically, take a second to ask why. Is it a written rule or an invisible one? Understanding the unseen forces that shape our behavior is the key to understanding ourselves and the world around us. To be truly free, we must first learn to see the laws we're not supposed to see, but always follow. The first topic is rules no one ever wrote. Ever noticed how some of the most powerful rules in our lives aren't written down anywhere? There are no laws, no official documents, no signed contracts. Yet, somehow, we all know them. These are the invisible laws of society, the silent agreements that dictate how we live our day-to-day lives. They're the subtle instructions that tell us what to wear to a wedding, how to act in a quiet library, who gets our respect, and who we instinctively avoid. Think about it. No one ever handed you a manual titled How to Be a Person. But if you break one of these unwritten rules, the reaction is instant. You might get a strange look, a cold shoulder, or maybe you'll just feel that awkward tension in the air. The punishment isn't a fine or jail time, but something almost more potent: social disapproval. This system of invisible governance is something we learn long before we even have the words to question it. As kids, we're like socials. We watch and absorb everything. We see which behaviors get a smile and a pat on the head, and which ones earn a frown or get us ignored. We notice which opinions are met with nods of agreement and which are met with silence. Slowly but surely, without any formal lessons, these observations build a set of boundaries in our minds. What starts as just watching others turns into a gut feeling, an instinct. We just know not to sing loudly on a crowded bus, or not to overshare with a new acquaintance. These instincts become our internal compass, guiding our actions and interactions, often without us even realizing it. But why do these invisible laws even exist? At their core, they're about creating predictability. Human societies thrive on a certain level of order. When we can generally predict how others will behave in certain situations, it makes the world feel safer and more manageable. It allows us to navigate complex social environments with a degree of confidence. If everyone follows a script, social harmony seems to flow naturally. But this predictability doesn't come for free. There's a hidden cost. Once a particular way of behaving becomes the norm, anything that falls outside of that norm can feel jarring, weird, or even wrong. This is true even when the normal behavior isn't necessarily the best or kindest one, and even when it might be causing genuine harm to some people. The problem is, challenging the norm feels like challenging reality itself. One of the trickiest things about these unwritten rules is that, unlike the laws in a law book, they're constantly shifting and adapting with culture and time. They evolve slowly, organically, often without anyone consciously deciding to change them. Think about how dress codes have changed over the decades, or how our ideas about polite conversation have transformed. This slow, silent evolution makes them incredibly difficult to pin down and challenge. You can't point to a specific sentence on a page and argue, "This rule is unfair," because there is no page. There is no official text to debate. Instead, when someone tries to question the status quo, they're often met with vague justifications like, "Well, that's just the way things are," or "We've always done it this way." These phrases are like conversational stop signs, designed to end a discussion before it can even begin. They shut down critical thinking and reinforce the idea that the current way is the only way. And very often, these unwritten rules serve to protect the existing social structures. They uphold hierarchies, preserve traditions, and maintain a certain level of social comfort for the majority, or at least for those in power. The people who benefit most from these invisible laws rarely have a reason to question them. Why would they? The system works perfectly fine from their perspective. It feels natural and right. But for those who are marginalized or constrained by these same rules, the experience is entirely different. They're the ones who are told to adapt, to fit in, to be patient, or to just stay quiet. Their discomfort is dismissed as a personal problem, rather than a flaw in the system itself. Perhaps the most brilliant and insidious thing about invisible laws is how they make us feel like we're in control. They don't feel like they're being forced upon us from the outside. Instead, they feel like our own personal choices. We believe we're freely choosing what to wear, how to speak, and what to believe, even when our choices are being heavily guided by a powerful undercurrent of social expectation. This illusion of absolute freedom is what keeps the whole system so remarkably stable. We enforce the rules on ourselves and on each other, becoming both the prisoners and the guards of our own social jail. Ultimately, these unwritten rules can become even more powerful than the written ones. If you break a formal law, you can challenge it in a court. There's a process, a system for appeal. But how do you challenge an invisible law? You challenge it in everyday conversations, in your actions, in the way you choose to live. And that's a much scarier arena, because it's where our deepest social fears reside. The fear of being judged, the fear of being misunderstood, the fear of being cast out and isolated, the fear of simply being different. This is the real reason these rules persist across generations. It's not because they are inherently wise or just or good. It's because they are familiar. And in a world that can often feel chaotic and unpredictable, familiarity feels safe. We cling to the known, even when the unknown might hold something better. So the next time you feel that little nudge to act a certain way, or to hold your tongue, take a moment to ask yourself, where is that feeling coming from? Is it a written rule, or is it one of the invisible laws that quietly shape our world? The second topic is how society teaches obedience. Have you ever wondered why you do certain things, even when no one tells you to? Why you stand in line, say bless you when someone sneezes, or feel a little awkward wearing something completely out of the ordinary? It's not because someone handed you a rule book. It's because society has a very subtle, yet powerful, way of teaching us to obey, and it starts much earlier than you think. Society doesn't teach obedience with loud commands or strict orders. It's much smarter than that. It teaches through repetition, through a quiet system of rewards and consequences that shapes us from the moment we're born. Think back to when you were a child. When you did something that fit in, that matched what everyone else was doing, you were probably met with smiles, praise, and a feeling of warmth. Good job. What a good boy, girl. That praise felt great, didn't it? It was a reward. It told you, this behavior is correct. Do it again. But what happened when you did something different? When you were too loud, asked an inappropriate question, or just didn't follow the unwritten rules of the group, you might have been met with a frown, a moment of awkward silence, or even a soft don't do that. That disapproval, that subtle correction, was a warning. It wasn't a punishment in the traditional sense, but it sent a clear message. This behavior is wrong. Don't do it again. This whole process is incredibly subtle. No one ever sits you down and says, you must obey these invisible social laws. It's not that direct. Instead, we learn through a million tiny reactions from the people around us. A shared laugh when you tell the right kind of joke. A sudden silence when you bring up a taboo topic. An eye roll when you break a social norm. Over years and years, our behavior is meticulously shaped, not by force, but by our deep-seated need to be accepted. Our families are the first and most powerful teachers in this system. Family traditions, from holiday rituals to the way you set the dinner table, are passed down from generation to generation. We rarely question them, do we? Why? Because they come wrapped in love, care, and a sense of belonging. Following these traditions makes us feel connected to our family, to our history. Questioning them feels like questioning the very fabric of our identity. So, we obey, not because we have to, but because it feels like coming home. Then comes school. School is a masterclass in structured obedience. Think about it. Bells telling you when to start and stop learning. Assigned seats, raising your hand to speak, walking in single file lines. It's all about routine and structure. This environment teaches us to follow a schedule, respect authority, and work within a predefined system. It reinforces the idea that there is a right way to do things, a way that ensures order and predictability. The reward is a good grade or a teacher's approval. The consequence is a dissension or simply being seen as a troublemaker. We learn to fit into the system to succeed within it. Our communities, our friend groups, our workplaces, they all continue this process. They reinforce obedience through approval and the threat of rejection. We adopt the slang, the dress code, the opinions of our social circles because we want to be part of the in-group. The most powerful teacher of obedience isn't physical punishment. It's social consequence. The fear of being ignored, the sting of being judged, the terror of being excluded. Humans are fundamentally social creatures. Our survival, historically and emotionally, has depended on being part of a group. The fear of isolation, of being cast out, is one of the most primal fears we have. It's often stronger than the fear of physical harm. So, when faced with a choice between conforming and being ostracized, most of us will choose to conform. We obey the unwritten rules to maintain our social standing and our sense of security. Obedience also spreads like a virus through example. When we look around and see everyone else conforming, we instinctively assume that's the correct, safe, and normal path. Social proof is an incredibly powerful psychological force. If 1,000 people are standing in a line, you're more likely to join it than to ask why it's there. Dissent, going against the grain, looks incredibly risky when you're the only one doing it. It makes you a target. This creates a self-perpetuating cycle. Obedience reinforces more obedience. The more people conform, the harder it becomes for anyone to break the mold. Language plays a crucial role in maintaining this cycle. Think about the words we use every day. Normal, proper, appropriate, respectable. These words are powerful tools of social control. They guide our behavior without ever needing a logical explanation. When we're told that a certain way of dressing is proper, or a certain opinion is inappropriate, we often accept it without question. Once a behavior is labeled with one of these words, questioning it feels like you're questioning common sense itself. It feels unnecessary, or The label does all the work, short-circuiting our critical thinking. Over time, something profound happens. This external pressure to obey becomes internal. It gets absorbed into our own minds. We start to correct ourselves before anyone else even has a chance to. We censor our own thoughts before we speak them. We adjust our actions to fit expectations automatically. We anticipate what others want from us and deliver it without being asked. At these points, society no longer needs to actively enforce its rules because we have become our own police. This is the final and most sophisticated stage of learning obedience. We internalize the gaze of society so completely that it becomes our own conscience. The invisible laws are now written on our hearts, and this is where it gets tricky. At this point, obedience starts to feel like a choice. It feels like freedom. We say, "This is just who I am," or "I want to behave this way." And in a sense, that's true. Our desires have been shaped to align with social expectations. But the critical question remains, was the menu of acceptable choices we were given to choose from ever really our own? Understanding this process of how society teaches obedience can be it is unsettling because it forces us to look in the mirror and ask a very difficult question. Are my behaviors, my beliefs, and my desires truly my own? Am I consciously choosing how I live my life? Or am I simply repeating the patterns I was trained to accept? There isn't an easy answer, but just asking the question is the first step toward true awareness, and perhaps true freedom. It allows us to see the invisible strings and decide, for ourselves, which ones we want to keep and which ones we want to cut. If this made you think, consider subscribing for more content that explores the hidden forces that shape our world. The third topic is punishment without chains. Have you ever felt the chill of being excluded? Not because you broke a written law, but because you violated an unspoken one. We usually think of punishment in terms of chains and cages, physical restrictions imposed by authority, but the most powerful forms of control often leave no physical mark at all. They are the invisible laws enforced by the most pervasive prison, society itself. This is the power of punishment without chains. It's a system where there are no guards, no prisons, and no formal charges, just reactions. When someone steps out of line, when they challenge the unwritten norms, society responds, and the response is almost immediate. It might be subtle. A sudden silence in the room, a look of sharp disapproval, a change in tone that freezes the air, or the collective cold shoulder of a social group. But the message is crystal clear. You have stepped out of line, and there is a price to pay for challenging the status quo. Why does this quiet form of punishment work so devastatingly well? Because we are fundamentally social creatures. For humans, belonging isn't just nice to have, it's survival. The fear of being excluded, mocked, or ignored threatens our deepest primal instincts. Society expertly leverages this fundamental fear to enforce obedience without ever resorting to force. This is social engineering at its most effective. Think about how this happens in real life. When you tell a joke that doesn't land right, or express an opinion that the group deems unacceptable, the correction isn't a slap on the wrist. It's a quick, sharp withdrawal of connection. The laughter stops. The conversation pivots away from you. You feel that sudden, uncomfortable realization you messed up. What makes these social punishments so difficult to fight is that they are almost always justified by the people claim they are simply reacting naturally, protecting our values, or maintaining civility. Responsibility for the harm is spread so thin across the community that no single person feels accountable. This system appears organic, natural, even necessary, not cruel or controlling. Consider the dynamic of accountability. If you are physically punished, there is an identifiable source. The rule, the law, the enforcer. You know who to confront. But punishment without chains protects itself from challenge because there is no clear authority to confront, no specific rule to repeal, and often, no formal accusation to defend against. The harm is experienced deeply and personally, but it is rarely, if ever, acknowledged by the group. If you try to point out the subtle cruelty of this exclusion, what happens? You are usually told you are overreacting, being too sensitive, or taking things too personally. The burden of proof is flipped onto the victim of the social correction. They are forced to endure the exclusion, while being gaslit into believing that the problem lies with their own sensitivity, not the group's behavior. This dynamic teaches people a profound lesson. It is safer to preemptively avoid conflict. Over time, people learn to anticipate the potential for social punishment. They begin to self-censor. They avoid certain topics, behaviors, or questions long before anyone has a chance to react negatively. Silence becomes the safest strategy. This process of self-censorship effectively replaces external enforcement. The society doesn't need to control you because you are already controlling yourself, meticulously policing your own thoughts and expressions to avoid the social chill. And the chilling effect doesn't stop there. This form of punishment actively discourages empathy. When someone is being excluded or socially corrected, what do others do? They often look away. They detach. Why? To avoid becoming a target themselves. If you show sympathy for the person who broke the unwritten rule, you risk being associated with their transgression and inviting the same social coldness upon yourself. In this subtle, insidious way, invisible laws turn communities into a collective of where fear of exclusion is the ultimate motivator. But why should we care about something that doesn't involve physical violence? Because the impact of these invisible punishments is lasting, perhaps even more so than physical restraints. They shape identity, they chip away at confidence, and they dictate not only how you are allowed to act, but crucially, who you are allowed to be. When a group repeatedly signals that a certain part of your personality, your viewpoint, or your interest is unwelcome, you internalize that signal. You begin to hide or suppress that part of yourself just to fit in. You are essentially being told that the cost of your authentic self is social exile. The conformity generated by this fear creates a smooth, predictable society, but it comes at the cost of genuine individuality and necessary dissent. This is why understanding punishment without chains is so vital. It is effective precisely because it is invisible. It hides behind the comfort of normalcy and the justification of that as just how things are. Because it leaves no physical evidence. It is easy to deny, easy to dismiss, and frighteningly easy to perpetuate without guilt. The challenge for us isn't just to recognize the physical injustices of the world, but to see the subtle social controls operating just beneath the surface of our everyday interactions. We must become aware of how quickly we use disapproval, silence, and exclusion to enforce conformity, and understand the profound impact that chilling effect has on individual freedom and creativity. Real freedom requires not just the absence of bars, but the willingness to tolerate discomfort, dissent, and difference without resorting to the silent, suffocating power of the cold shoulder. What are the unwritten rules in your life that you fear breaking the most? Let me know in the comments below. The fourth topic is why invisible laws feel natural. Ever wondered why we follow rules that aren't even written down? You know, those unspoken social codes about how to act, what to say, or even what to believe. They feel so natural, so much a part of us, that we rarely stop to question them. It's like they're just common sense. But what if I told you that this feeling of naturalness is actually a very clever illusion? Let's dive into why these invisible laws feel like they're part of our DNA, when in reality, they're just well-disguised instructions. Think back to when you were a kid. From a very young age, we're taught the ropes. Don't talk with your mouth full. Say, please and thank you, stunning line. These rules are repeated over and over, not just by our parents, but by teachers, cartoons, and everyone around us. We learned them so early and practiced them so often that by the time we reeled enough to think critically, they've already moved from our conscious mind into our subconscious. They don't feel like rules anymore. They feel like reality. It's not about being controlled. It's just the way things are. This constant early exposure is the first key. It's like learning a language. When you grow up with it, you don't think about grammar. You just speak. These social rules are the grammar of our society. One of the biggest reasons these laws feel so normal is simple exposure. Imagine you've only ever seen green apples. If someone showed you a red one, you might think it's weird, maybe even fake. It's the same with social behaviors. When we see a certain way of acting everywhere in movies, on TV, in our families, and among our friends, that behavior becomes the default setting in our minds. It feels normal. Any other way of doing things seems strange, impractical, or even wrong. The media plays a huge role in this, constantly reinforcing the same stories, the same traditions, and the same expectations. Alternatives aren't just rare. They start to look completely unrealistic. We are surrounded by a self-reinforcing echo chamber that tells us, this is how life works. But there's another, more personal reason we stick to these invisible laws. Comfort. Life is full of uncertainty, and that can be scary. Unwritten rules give us a roadmap. They tell us how to navigate social situations, what to expect from other people, and what they expect from us. Should you shake hands or bow? How long should you make eye contact? These little rules reduce social anxiety and make our interactions smoother. Following them feels safe and predictable. It creates a sense of stability. The problem is, we often mistake this stability for correctness. Just because something has been done a certain way for a long time doesn't mean it's the right way or the only way. We trade a little bit of our freedom for the comfort of knowing what comes next. And over time, we forget we even made that trade. Now, here's where it gets really deep. These invisible laws don't just guide our behavior. They become part of our identity. Think about the traditions in your family or the values of your community. You might defend them passionately, not because you've sat down and decided they are objectively fair or logical, but because they are part of who you are. Questioning these traditions can feel like questioning yourself, your family, or your entire heritage. A challenge to the rule feels like a personal attack. This is how tradition becomes deeply personal. We stop seeing them as external rules we follow and start seeing them as internal truths we embody. Defending the rule becomes an act of defending our own identity. This makes it incredibly difficult to see them objectively or to even consider that they might be flawed. Over generations, something fascinating happens. We forget that these rules were created by people. We start to treat them as if they are fixed, unchangeable laws of nature, like gravity, the way the world is. This collective amnesia is incredibly convenient, especially for those in power. If a rule is seen as a natural truth rather than a human invention, then no one is responsible for it. And if no one is responsible, no one has to change it. If social hierarchies or inequalities are just the natural order of things, then there's no point in fighting them. This illusion of permanence is a powerful tool for maintaining the status quo. The less visible a rule is, the more power it has, because you can't resist something you don't even know is there. People comply without ever realizing they are complying, thinking they are acting on their own free will. But here's the most important part of this whole story. History is the ultimate myth. It shows us, time and time again, that what feels natural in one era is seen as absurd in another. Think about it. Norms around gender roles, marriage, work, and even basic rights have shifted dramatically. Rules that were once considered absolute and unbreakable have been completely dismantled. Women voting, for example, was once seen as a radical, unnatural idea. Today, anything else is unthinkable. This proves that our natural social laws are not natural at all. They are constructed, they are built, maintained, and can be rebuilt. The moment of awakening happens when you realize this. The moment you see an invisible law not as an inherited truth from nature, but as a learned behavior passed down through culture, its power over you begins to fade. It's like pulling back the curtain and seeing the wizard. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. That realization is the first and most crucial step toward real freedom. It's the freedom to question, to choose, and to imagine new ways of being. It allows us to ask, does this rule actually serve us? Is it fair? Is there a better way? And by asking these questions, we start the process of writing new rules, creating a world that is more conscious, more intentional, and ultimately, more free for everyone. So, the next time you catch yourself thinking, well, that's just the way it is, take a second to pause. Ask yourself, says who? Where did this rule come from? Who does it benefit? Recognizing the invisible architecture of our social world is the beginning of true liberation. It is about moving from being a passive follower of rules to an active architect of your own life and society. The fifth topic is breaking rules you can't see. Have you ever felt like you're following a rule you can't see? Like there's an invisible script telling you how to act, what to say, and even what to feel. We all have. These are the unwritten laws of our society, our workplaces, our families. And honestly, breaking these invisible rules is way harder than breaking the written ones. Why? Because you can't point to what you're resisting. There's no official rule book, no clear authority figure to argue with, and no obvious line to cross. It's like fighting a ghost. Yet, if you look back through history, this is how every significant change begins. Not with a bang, but with a quiet whisper of doubt. It starts uncertainly, often with just one person feeling that something isn't right. Think about it. The first person to question a long-held tradition. The first person to say, why do we do it this way? The first person to act differently in a small, almost unnoticeable way. That's where the real revolution starts. So, how do you even begin to challenge a rule you can't see? The very first step, the one that makes everything else possible, is awareness. It's that light bulb moment when you suddenly notice a pattern. You realize that a certain behavior is expected of you, but no one has ever actually explained why. It's just the way things are. The second you see it, a tiny crack appears in the system. That awareness transforms your autopilot, instinctual behavior into a conscious choice. And once you have a choice, the invisible rule starts to lose its power over you. It's no longer an absolute truth. It's just one option among many. Now, The people who challenge these invisible laws, they rarely look like the rebels you see in movies. They're not always loud or confrontational. More often, they're the quiet questioners. They're the ones who simply ask, why? They're the ones who choose to act a little differently, who don't laugh at a joke that makes them uncomfortable, who don't participate in gossip, or who refuse to feel shame for something that isn't shameful. This simple act of being different makes other people uncomfortable, and that discomfort is powerful. It's a mirror. It forces others to look at their own behavior and ask themselves, am I doing this because I truly believe in it? Or am I just afraid of what will happen if I don't? Am I guided by my own values, or by the fear of being judged? Suddenly, what was once a comfortable, mindless routine becomes a source of internal conflict for everyone. The invisible rule is no longer invisible. It's out in the open, exposed and vulnerable. This kind of resistance doesn't spread like a wildfire. It's more like a seed growing underground. It spreads slowly, from person to person. Think about your own life. We don't usually change our deep-seated beliefs just because someone tells us to. We change when we see someone else break the mold and not just survive, but thrive. We see a coworker set a boundary and gain respect. We see a friend choose an unconventional path and find happiness. Each of these small acts of defiance expands our own sense of what's possible. What once felt dangerous or unacceptable starts to feel normal, even human. This process doesn't destroy society. It's not about anarchy or tearing everything down. It's about reshaping it. It's about, of course, some rules, even unwritten ones, are essential. They exist for good reasons, to maintain kindness, respect, and order. But many others exist for no other reason than to protect the comfort of the status quo and the power of those who benefit from it. The real challenge, for all of us, is learning to tell the difference. Which rules serve the collective good, and which ones just serve to keep people in their place. History proves that we move forward as a species when enough people stop confusing tradition with truth. Just because something has always been done a certain way doesn't mean it's the right way or the only way. Progress happens when blind obedience is replaced with genuine understanding. It happens when silence gives way to honest dialogue, even when that dialogue is The most incredible thing about these invisible laws is that their power is built entirely on our collective belief. They exist in our minds. They are fueled by our shared assumption that everyone else is on board. The moment that belief starts to fade, so does their power. The moment we start questioning them, they begin to dissolve. True freedom doesn't begin with a new set of rules to follow. It doesn't come from a government or an institution granting you permission. It begins in a much quieter, more personal space. It begins with the courage to question the rules you never even knew you were following. It starts the moment you look at the world around you and ask that simple, powerful question: why? So, what's one invisible rule you've started to notice in your own life? Let's talk about it in the comments. It's best by sharing our observations that we help each other see what's been hidden in plain sight. Thanks for watching. And if this resonated with you, consider subscribing for more thoughts on how we can all live a more conscious life. See you next time.